Buenas tardes. Les invitamos a tomar asiento para dar inicio a esta sesión. Les recordamos que contaremos con traducción simultánea durante toda la jornada. Si lo requieren, pueden tomar uno de los headsets disponibles que están en la entrada. Buenas tardes, soy Michelle Domínguez y es un gusto darles la bienvenida a la sala LAC Futuro del Foro Económico Internacional América Latina y el Caribe 2026. ¿Cómo posicionar a la región en el escenario global? Este evento es organizado por CAF, Banco de Desarrollo de América Latina.
Welcome to this session. This event is organized by CAF, the Development Bank of Latin America and the Caribbean, with the support of the Government of Panama. We thank our media partners, Prisa, CNN, El País, La Prensa, Estrella de Panamá, El Tiempo, El Universo, El Comercio, ABC, ABC, Radio Panamá, La Nación, Diario RCN, RCN, El Deber, ECO, Diario El Salvador, and Globo and TVN. Our broadcasting is available in 3 languages through streaming, and we count on simultaneous interpretation services. Should you require it, please take one of the available headsets at the entrance. You may share your experiences and reflections through social media by using hashtag Economic Forum or Foro Económico CAF, and follow us through our social media and at Agenda CAF or Agenda CAF through our social media accounts. This way, we can extend this dialogue beyond these 4 walls and reach the global community. We also want to greet our community joining us online and encourage them to also add comments and reactions. We start the second day of the forum with this session called Returns that Transform the Regulation of Impact Investment. For this purpose, we want to welcome Claudia Flores, Manager of Productive Sectors and New Businesses of CAF, who will be moderating this session. Welcome. Let's start again. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the panel Returns that Transform the Revolution of Impact Investment. Impact investment is transforming the financial system worldwide by showing that it's possible to generate attractive returns while creating social impact and positive environments that are measurable and verifiable. In Latin America, this approach is specifically relevant because of the challenges in the region and, in turn, because of the opportunities that exist in sectors such as financial inclusion, health, education, sustainable agriculture, and clean energies. Today, we will talk about how this impact ecosystem is an impact investment ecosystem is evolving, what is required and how is it measured, and what conditions enable a better mobilization of institutional capital with investments with purpose in the region. For this purpose, we count on an extraordinary panel of exceptional leaders. I start with Liliana Reyes, General Director of the Fund of Funds of Mexico since 2025, since the end of 2025, and the first woman leader or female leader in this institution with over 20 years of experience in the financial and economic sector. She has worked in development banking, entrepreneurship, and she has been a key voice in the strengthening of the guild and the ecosystem of private capital in Mexico. Welcome, Liliana. Next, we have Raúl Pomares, founder of Son and Capital. Raúl has over 25 years of experience in impact investment worldwide. He is an international reference in the construction of portfolios that integrate impact and financial performance as an active role in the development of ecosystem, another of multiple publications and advisor to the Global Impact Investment Network. Welcome, Raul. Now we have Tami Noor, CEO and Managing partner of Eco Enterprise Fund, pioneer in impact investment in Latin America with over 3 decades leading investment in bio-innovation, conservation of biodiversity, and nature-based companies in the region. Welcome, Tammy. I will continue with Jasmina Saitman, Chief Development and Partnership Officer of Acumen. She leads strategic alliances, partnerships, and the mobilization of capital to escalate entrepreneurial models that address poverty from market approach with broad experience in energy, water, and international development. Welcome. And finally, we have Rosario Pasan, founder and president of the Damper Directory, agri- agro-industrial company leader in the region and reference and value models, shared models that integrate profitability, dignified employment, and uh, territorial development and environmental sustainability. Welcome. With this panel, I invite you to reflect as to how this context are defining the future of investment and development in Latin America. To start with, I would like for us to have a perspective of how impact investment has changed in Latin America in the last few years. We have seen more interests, more capital, and more actors, but there are also important gaps. Raul, let's begin with you. From your experience building impact portfolios worldwide, how have you seen the evolution of the ecosystem of impact evolution in Latin America in the last 5 years? Where do you identify there are the greatest gaps? Thank you very much. Undoubtedly, these have been very interesting 5 years in the impact investment ecosystem. When you look at this worldwide, Latin America, in the context of impact investment, has been a little lagging behind, so to speak, as compared to other markets. But in these last 5 years, this has changed a lot. And this is based on so many efforts as the people attending today and the years of history that Tommy, Andreas, and many others have. They have been working and should be and struggling to create, mature, and elaborate this ecosystem. Today, we have advanced a lot. We already have fund managers, we have different types of advisors, accelerators, and we have the necessary tools to continue and to start to escalate. And that is where we are stuck. That is the most important gap. We still need to escalate all this talent, all this capacity, all these skills in the region. And what we need to scale up, we need capital. That's what we need to scale to escalate. Capital, capital, capital. And that is where we have a long way to go as an ecosystem in planting and recognizing not only inside the region but outside the region, recognizing investment markets so that they can understand what the opportunity is and why they should be investing in LATAM, and then hand in hand have the adequate vehicles that capital can flow towards the region in the easiest way possible. In your vision, with your direct work with companies in the region, and what sectors do you see now with the best opportunities to escalate impact in a profitable way?
To celebrate CAF because they sort of set me up for this panel when I don't know whether any of you attended this morning plenary on nature-based solutions, biodiversity, and climate, because that's the particular impact investing niche that I've been working in for 30 years. To actually have that plenary, to have that interest, and to have sort of the whole topic elevated to the point to talk about investment and financial mechanisms to try to get more money into the field. I mean, Eco Enterprises Fund's trajectory has mirrored the impact investing industry. We just launched our fourth fund. Just as Raul was saying, there's a lot more players, there's a lot more tools, there's a lot more dynamism, but really the pivotal part of the industry will be when the private sector is actually catalyzed and it becomes a mainstream niche of businesses. What is really important about impact investing is that the impact side of these companies that the private sector that we invest in is their asset and will be their asset going forward. And if you start looking at the value of that asset within the company, whether it is within the tech space, whether education, whether health, my niche, biodiversity, climate, all of that, that it has value. And if you could create and capitalize on that value through various different instruments, that's how you get the private sector in. That's how you do reduce risk. And that's how, there is that scaling that we're talking about. We're seeing a bit of the scaling, just in terms of we invest in food and beverage companies. You do see sort of a regional scaling or a global south to global south scaling. You see it in energy, you see it in fintech. You're beginning to see a lot of it, but you really just need some of that enabling environment to spur more capital in. And there is in Latin America still a void in the marketplace, and you need models in order to spur others to come into the space.
Gracias, Tami. Esta evolución del ecosistema solo es posible cuando existen empresas capaces de convertir
But when there are companies capable of turning impact into a key part. Rosario, you're a global reference in sustainability in the agro-food sector. What model can we enable you to turn into an impact case by generating social progress and impact? First and foremost, thank you. I want to thank CAF for inviting me to such an important forum and to be able to share the role that my company plays in the agri-food sector, not only in Peru, but the whole world. In this regard, we are a company that has a key role in the production and export of products that are superfoods in different markets of the world, such as mangoes, grapes, blueberries, and vegetables, the artichokes and peppers. We have become the main producer and exporter of artichokes in the retail market, and we have been doing this hand in hand with our smaller farmers. 32 years ago, I had the blessing and the privilege of founding Dampe, and I did this with the clear purpose of generating adding value in turn, with the aim of contributing to the inclusive growth in our country and the economic growth and social development. For this purpose, or therefore, I am convinced, and based on the profitable results and competitive results and sustainable results that we have been generating day after day, that social impact and profitability are not only compatible but indispensable, both of them, one for the other. I am convinced that social impact does not compete with profitability. Social impact complements or supplements it, and in the long term, I am convinced that investing in the generation of investment opportunities for our workers, our smaller farmers, and the communities in our surroundings not only generate social impact and an attractive financial return, but also contribute to generating that social peace, so important to preserve the feasibility of our population, our communities, our organizations, and our companies, and of course, our region. And the outlook of our region, Latin America and the Caribbean, this is the main producer and exporter of food for all the planet. We have that privilege and challenge. It plays a key role in food safety in the planet. And a fifth part of food in the planet comes from exports in the Latin American region and the Caribbean. However, a third of the population in our region suffers multidimensional poverty and lack of food safety. Therefore, this creates deep social gaps that slow down and impede the growth and sustainable development of our countries and our region. So, before this raw reality that is replicated, by the way, in my country, in Peru, as well as in many other countries in Latin America, what is it that we are doing as a private company or as the private sector? So, I consider that business leaders should execute a business model that transcends objectives that are purely economic in nature in order to break this vicious cycle that impacts millions of men and women in our countries, in our region, putting at stake the present and the future of our economies and our societies. This is why 32 years ago, when I co-founded Damper, we established a business model that was innovative for the time called shared value. Our management model is based on value creation, shared value creation that connects profitability with the progress of our workers, their families, our communities, and those small farmers. In other words, we have been able, from the onset of our operations, we have been able to conceive impact investment at the core of our company, in the strategy of our business, so that the way we build a business is all about sustainability. Having said this, in this 32 years, we have been able to build in a series of initiatives and programs that have a high impact in the quality of life of people in health, education, gender equity specifically. In health, we have healthcare centers that generate that offer free care and diverse care to workers and also agriculture or farmers. In terms of gender, we educate game changers to eradicate violence against women within the company and communities. And regarding farmers, we build their capacities in order to strengthen the productive chain or value chain in terms of food safety. So, what I can share is that according to the outcome in these 32 years of operations, of business trajectory, the return, the financial return, and the social impact that we have been generating is in turn allowing us to be capable of transforming lives, of transforming realities, and therefore contributing to transforming the reality of our countries, meaning generating a real return that transforms. Thank you.
With these cases, I mean, despite this hasn't been integrated into traditional cases. Jasmina, from your experience moving the philanthropic and catalytic investment, what are the barriers that you had to overcome to bring capital to at a larger scale?
Take this out while I speak. And to see this moment in history, the conversations happening in this forum are really exciting, I think, at a global level. It's also really meaningful for me personally. My grandfather was an immigrant to Venezuela. We've talked so much about immigration from Venezuela, but he was able to build a life based on entrepreneurship. And that's really at the foundation of Acumen's work. So when we look at some of the barriers to seeing impact investing become more mainstream in Latin America, I think certainly regulatory barriers that we see across borders is one big issue. The lack of support, consistency, and standards that would enable more creative fund structures or financial investment strategies that can work when you're looking across countries. A lot of companies who need to scale not only within their country, but across the region, facing barriers from a regulatory perspective. So I think policy is a part of it. But for us, as an early stage investor, we mobilize philanthropy to support entrepreneurs who are not yet attractive to commercial investors in the belief that over time they can scale and grow and have the transformative effect that we just heard about. And so some of the key barriers that we focus on are really market barriers. The lack of pipeline that comes from the need for more capacity building and support for entrepreneurs at an early stage, the ability for these entrepreneurs to really prepare themselves for investment readiness. And then in terms of risk, really thinking about how do you build the ecosystem of businesses that can be de-risked so that they are more attractive to commercial investors. So we look at capital really across the whole spectrum. We've invested about 12 million through our philanthropy-backed investing in 22 companies, but really laying the groundwork for them to move on to more commercial capital. And we simultaneously manage commercial funds for more mature companies, through which we manage over 100 million. But to us, the two are very complementary. And the idea that we can somehow cut to the chase, focus on commercial opportunities, these beautiful businesses that create profit as well as impact, without recognizing the need to support a true ecosystem where policies, risk mitigation, capacity building for entrepreneurs is there to, again, lay the foundation. And that's where Acumen is really trying to focus, this complementary strategy that supports investors to see the opportunities in the market, to discover entrepreneurs that we may have been supporting through our Acumen Academy program from years earlier, or providing technical assistance or very patient capital investments. Our goal is to really see how we can use all of that to unlock more commercial capital in the region.
Gracias, Yasmina. Tami, vuelvo contigo. Desde la perspectiva de un fondo pionero, ¿cuáles dirías hoy que son las...
Back to you. What are the main barriers on the market and risk perception stopping investment in terms of impact? Hay mucha.
Should I repeat the question?
So one of the things that's really important is that we've taken a bottom-up strategy rather than a top-down strategy. And going back to the whole issue of risk, we work in rural areas and we require all the companies that we invest in to have some type of stakeholder engagement and working relationships with the local communities. And the reason why I mention this, because it's really, when you look at the commerciality of businesses or the long-term sustainability of businesses, you really need to make sure that all vested interests have a reason to get involved in the company and to actually have sort of a positive outcome. And that includes also local governments, that includes other local stakeholders, that includes the private sector and equity investors, that includes sort of that whole ecosystem that we're talking about here, to try to create that ecosystem where you have voices and a diversified voices and perspective in order to then really initiate change. And so we have seen the growing sophistication of companies over time and sort of the scaling up of the governance structures, the institutionalization of these businesses. And it's only through that that you then reduce the risk. And then by reducing the risk, you appeal to more mainstream investors. Now, our funds are structured as private equity funds and it's a 10-year fund. During each 10 years, there's different vintage years. If you're familiar with vintage years, a lot happens over 10 years. You know, we've been through September 11th. We've been through the Great Recession. We've been through the pandemic. You know, all of these and the market variabilities you need to manage to reduce the volatility and uncertainty. So we construct portfolios that some companies are more risky than other companies. We look at countries, and during each vintage year, certain countries were much more conducive to investment than other countries. But I would have to say, going into now the market and going into sort of where we're going with Fund 4, I would have to say there's the best conditions really that are there, despite the fact that always companies manage risk and look at risk. but there's much more understanding of environmental and social risk, macro risk, economic risk, governance risk. And when you have that understanding and the data to back it up, then you have more private sector interest and more mechanisms that you could tap into to come into these companies.
Gracias, Tami. Superar estas barreras requiere no solamente
Overcoming these barriers, not only do they require will, they do need more structured financial vehicles. From your experience in private capital, what are the regulatory frameworks emerging in Latin America to facilitate the movement of capital to purpose-driven finance? Well, thank you so much for the invitation. Thanks. We have all the key actors, and I think that the networking part is fundamental to try to find solutions where we can try to work on development processes in the region. This is fundamental. So from the development banking, the topic here, which has been addressed, is not the lack of project or the need to invest in on impact. I think that we're all clear about this, but what we need are the resources for this to happen. Investors, we need to be convinced. Raul mentioned that this is a struggle, but I think that things happen and things have to be done faster. And development banking has been fundamental, not only in our case, we are supported by the Mexican Development Fund, Bancomex, Banobras. They said that the capital aspect is important. We need to bet to make sure that we can become the anchor investors to reduce the risk and to generate the risk. And but risk capital at some point we need to do it first because the economic development of these countries related to the funding funds that are non-traditional, such as private capital. So when we create these type of funds, $7 billion raised in capital in the country, we have invested in more than 126 funds. So the mission is so important. And again, this is a challenge to say uh, this is something that we need to bet on. So we need to start to make sure that other investors are convinced very wisely. I think at the time they allied to create the first impact fund, having this component, the experience of a sector that it is extremely important, which is new in terms of the impact that can be measured and the development bank behind that to bring new uh, the investors, including CAF, and then we have development banking, and then finally betting on the traditional investors. So today we have good news in Fondo de Fondos. Apart from having this fund, we're working hand in hand with CAF so that we can have a regional impact fund. And I think that this is a very good impact with the experience of an investor of these results in this creation of ecosystems plus the multilateral banking. So this is a typical approach, but this will be better for the trust of investors. There are no have mentions here. So those experts and those of you who are in such a challenging role, I think that the development bank, this is a fundamental element to determine how we are pioneers. We're doing it. The Fondo de Fondos, good news for the country, uh, which are so important at these difficult times. They're betting on capitalize the Fondo de Fondos in a new vehicle, and hopefully we can bring investment for impact in a second fund. So I would basically say that the regulatory aspect that we need to promote, we need to convince the development bank, and we need to bet on this, and this has to go to the political cycles, and this is something that we see in the countries having a fund like ours goes beyond these administrations and consolidates a long-term career, because this is something that you need to work on, you need to gain trust, and we have a robust ecosystem that will produce good results to bring more capital to Mexico and to the region. Thank you. Raúl, go back to you. From the investor standpoint, what are the main challenges to make sure that these vehicles can escalate sustainably and to bring institutional capital? Education, education, and education. That requires investors need to be educated in terms of why this work is being done. Everything could be perfect. One of the challenges that we have here in LATAM is the difficulties in terms of the oftentimes the capital has to go through an instrument in Chile, and then it goes to Chile to invest in Canada, and so on and so forth. And these things are not only complicated but expensive. And this is a challenge that we have as a region. So we need to see if we can address this in Europe. All the different countries of the EU have adopted a policy, and in those countries, you can create a structure where they can invest. So this is an industry that we need to sort out, and what we have been discussing before, and as indicated by Tammy, it is worth mentioning the investor, apart from the education process, the investor needs to appreciate and assess these impact. So this is one of the topics that we need to address so that we can progress on this aspect. So that's where we're heading. For capital to flow, the measurement and verification of impact is becoming a core trust aspect. Has Rosario has damper growth grown sustainably? How do you measure the impact of the initiatives that you implement through your management process based on a share value? I think that the investment, the impact investment, in order for it to be reliable, credible, and scalable, has to be measured and verified with the same rigor as we measure and verify our financial outcomes. And in Damper, what you do not measure, you do not understand. And what you do not understand is not well managed. And what you do not manage well will not produce any continuous improvement or any sustainable transformation. So the question that we asked ourselves nearly 4 years ago was, although it is true that we've been implementing initiatives and programs that may have an impact on the quality of life of our workers, families, and communities, and also impacting the competitiveness of our companies, how can we know if this impact is true or if it happens? So in alliance with the IBD, we measured the index of poverty, multidimensional poverty index, which is an instrument developed by the University of Oxford, adopted by the UN. So this is an instrument that is complete and reliable, that measures not only poverty, but also the different dimensions: health, education, housing, and social protection. So in this regard, this study that was made by the bank to measure these impacts, it reveals that the index of multidimensional index in Damper that measures multi dimensional poverty of workers and their households is 28%. That's a significant significantly lower percentage compared to the 42% in our country. This study also reveals that a damper worker that completed high school compared to those who didn't complete high school, there are there is a 48% po- possibility below to for the family to go below poverty. There's international evidence in a study of the World Bank that indicates that every year, and in addition, and every year of school generates between 8 to 10% of increase in the revenue. So there's a close relationship between education and the economic studies. 98% of the workers who complete their high school within the company through this education for adults, they have an economic income compared to those who do not complete their school studies. We also measure the gender equality through the different policies and actions that we take within the company and the community. In our company, we have there's a salary gap of women and men, and it's 2.5% compared to 25% of the salary gap in Peru. So a woman, just for being a woman in my country, and I'm sure that it replicates in other countries in Latin America, just for being a woman, we win 25 we earn 25% less in salaries. At the health level, we have free health levels or programs, and this affects the wellness of our workers, especially our women, because we have programs that are exclusive, affecting the quality of life of women. Health, education, gender equality, help our workers to be more healthy, to be more educated, and therefore this moves on in this delves into the competitiveness of our company. So we also measure the carbon footprint through different indicators, and then at the level of circular economy, we recently we're using 98% of the residues of the 12 plants in the areas where we plant our products. So this implies we receive the zero waste, and we became the first agro-industrial company in Latin America receiving this recognition. So just to conclude, I can say that the different initiatives and programs aimed at elevating the quality of life of people in our organizations among the small farmers, they do work. They do work, and they generate social impact and financial returns at the same time. And I am really grateful for to the leaders of the 14,000 men and women who work for Damper, because we have become a true vehicle of development so that we can contribute to change the reality of our country. So just to wrap up, I would like to look forward and see how can we expedite this transformation. Jasmina, how can the catalytical capital maximize its multiplying effect to bring private capital to the impact? And my apologies, we're running out of time.
in this forum and knowing that there are a number of development finance institutions, to me, there's a huge opportunity for development finance banks to play a catalytic role alongside foundations, philanthropists, not necessarily to substitute for private commercial capital, but really to enable the market that can attract that capital in much larger amounts. Some of the ways that we see people doing this, and it does sometimes require a little bit of creativity, a little bit of boldness, a little bit of courage. The funders that have worked with us in the creative structures that we've built, whether they were philanthropy driven or commercial, always had to stretch a little bit outside of the bounds of what they do every day. And that's part of what's needed for people to use their imagination to say, how do we push this market further? The impact is tremendous. We see catalytic capital and financial institutions absorbing risk by providing first loss. This literally opens the door for commercial investors to come in, and some will not come in unless there is some first loss component. We see the demonstration effect of large institutions signaling to other investors that it is safe to come into the water. And you can't underestimate what it means to be a first mover. We hear all the time, we would like to be second, we would like to be third. There is a huge opportunity to be first, and I would encourage people to think about where you can be first. I also think there's something about really recognizing the non-financial support that's needed to build these businesses and investing in things like technical assistance and impact measurement. These companies are prepared to build value to create profitability, but what they are being asked to do is also to deliver social impact, and that can come at a cost. So being able to side by side align different kinds of capital is something that I think investment and development banks can provide with that kind of creativity alongside catalytic capital and philanthropy. For Acumen, I think what we've seen is that this catalytic capital absolutely does attract private capital. It's why the sector is moving. And so it's simply about looking at your own resources, your own institution, to understand where you fit into the equation and how can you maximize the level of risk and boldness and urgency that you bring to the table, rather than saying, what is the safest position that I can have, right? You don't need to be a follower, because we're seeing an opportunity for leaders to actually shape this sector and accelerate change. For Acumen, we've seen the results, we've seen the growth that's possible, and we see the need for more partners to come to the table. So thank you for this opportunity.
Gracias, Yasmina. Y Liliana, finalmente, desde la banca de desarrollo,
Development banking, what can be the how can we reduce the risk to make sure that this we need to bet on own resources. This is what we've been doing for such a long time, reinforces this commitment. And I also think that there's a function, well supported, to convince other investors to be not the first ones, but the second or third to support this risk. So I think that this is happening, and I think that we have to head on the right direction, and not only by investing ourselves, but generating these alliances with investors. So there we have a lot of firm for and there we also see division of challenges. Was 7 years in the Capital Private Association, but we need to create a group of investors, and I would love for this to take place where we can see which are the challenges that we have as investors to accelerate this investment and to have a project in the region where we need to do this quickly. And why not perhaps share these risk of the development of the national and multilateral development banks? So there are experiences in Colombia, Chile, Peru. They created their fund of funds focused on the venture part. Uh, but I think that this is highly relevant to make joint efforts, and we as investors we need to take that commitment.
todos y cada uno de ustedes, definitivamente esta conversación nos deja claro que la inversión de impacto no es solo una tendencia, sino una forma distinta de entender el rol de capital, una que busca rentabilidad, pero también transformación social y ambiental. El reto hoy en día para nosotros es escalar. Muchas gracias.
Okay. Gracias. Okay.
The Adam Smith Center for Economic Freedom. You don't just learn, you achieve. Through our interdisciplinary Bachelor of Science in Business and Government Leadership, you'll gain perspective, innovate, and connect with real-world leaders.
It starts with me.
It starts with me.
It starts with me. It starts with you.
Leadership starts here. At the Adam Smith Center for Economic Freedom, you don't just learn, you achieve. Through our interdisciplinary Bachelor of Science in Business and Government Leadership, you'll gain perspective, innovate, and connect with real-world leaders.
It starts with me.
It starts with me.
It starts with me. It starts with you.
Leadership starts here. The Adam Smith Center for Economic Freedom at Florida International University. Exploring the intersection of government policy and the free market to offer a better understanding of the free enterprise system and its impact on human prosperity around the world. Founded in 2020 by Governor Ron DeSantis and the Florida legislature to promote education and mentorship through multidisciplinary programs and fellowships, we empower students in public policy and free enterprise. We conduct cutting-edge research on political and economic systems, host global conferences and seminars, and improve public policy by providing informed analysis to decision makers. At the Adam Smith Center, we blend knowledge and action to shape a prosperous, free future and foster a vibrant community of leaders. We inform, innovate, influence, inspire. The Adam Smith Center for Economic Freedom at FIU.
Buenas tardes. Queremos volver a mencionar que aquellas personas que necesiten el headset pueden utilizarlos, los que están en la entrada. También invitamos a todos los asistentes y a nuestra comunidad que está conectada vía digital a que participen y hagan los comentarios, opiniones, reflexiones y cualquier experiencia utilizando el hashtag Foro Económico CAF. También los invitamos a seguir nuestras redes sociales en @agendacaf en X, Instagram y Facebook. Continuamos ahora con la presentación del lanzamiento del primer bono social a cargo del señor Pablo Bartol, gerente de Desarrollo Social y Humano de CAF. Pero antes queremos que puedan ver el siguiente video.
La infancia y la juventud son la base del futuro de nuestra región, pero para construirlo debemos invertir hoy. Al brindar esperanza a través de programas centrados en la niñez y la juventud, cada dólar que comprometamos ahora producirá retornos duraderos para las generaciones venideras. Nuestra región alberga a aproximadamente 255 millones de niños y jóvenes. Cerca del 45% enfrenta graves desafíos, como la pobreza, mientras que muchos otros son víctimas de la desigualdad y la violencia, que afectan sus vidas y limitan sus oportunidades. Hoy en día esto representa alrededor de 115 millones de niños y jóvenes en América Latina y el Caribe que necesitan atención urgente. Salvaguardar su presente y su futuro es una responsabilidad compartida. CAF y UNICEF han construido una alianza estratégica. La iniciativa Banco Futuro de CAF tiene como objetivo mejorar la canalización de recursos financieros y técnicos para incrementar inversiones de calidad enfocadas en la niñez y adolescencia en América Latina y el Caribe. Porque la inversión social, especialmente la dirigida a la infancia y la juventud, ya no debe posponerse. Se requiere un replanteamiento integral que apoye, fortalezca y optimice los esfuerzos que realizan los gobiernos de toda la región. Invertir en la niñez y la juventud es una inversión en el presente y en el futuro, orientada a transformar vidas y cambiar destinos. Así nació Banco Futuro, una iniciativa con propósito, construida desde el corazón y firmemente arraigada en la tierra que compartimos. Comprometido con la niñez y la juventud de la región, Banco Futuro se construye sobre 3 pilares sólidos. La red de alianzas por la infancia en América Latina y el Caribe. CAF invita a quienes comparten esta misión a unirse a este movimiento continuo. Inversiones de alto impacto, basadas en el marco de la inversión Child Lens de UNICEF. Y la innovación financiera de vanguardia, para ofrecer las mejores condiciones a los países. CAF aspira a convertirse en el primer banco de desarrollo a nivel mundial en adoptar el CLIP de UNICEF, garantizando que tanto los proyectos nuevos como los existentes, bajo esta iniciativa, prioricen el bienestar de los niños y jóvenes desde el principio. Mecanismos financieros innovadores para impulsar una mayor inversión pública y privada, vinculada a resultados de alto impacto para niños y jóvenes, con nuevas asociaciones nacionales y regionales para movilizar colaboraciones intersectoriales, incluidos gobiernos, empresas y donantes, destinadas a impulsar inversiones conjuntas. La iniciativa de Banco Futuro tiene como meta movilizar $5,000 millones para transformar la vida de 50 millones de jóvenes en América Latina y el Caribe. Cada recurso dedicado a apoyar a las nuevas generaciones produce resultados a corto plazo y construye una base sólida para las décadas venideras. Banco Futuro LAC representa una visión audaz, solidaria y profundamente comprometida. Proteger los derechos de los niños, niñas y adolescentes de hoy y sembrar las semillas del futuro con cada acción.
Buenas tardes a todos, un placer estar aquí presentando este lanzamiento del primer bono Futuro LAC, dedicado especialmente a la infancia y la juventud, y por $1,000 millones, mucho dinero, Kitty. Entonces la verdad que para mí es un placer estar acá, en algo que comenzamos hace unos 2 años cuando firmamos con UNICEF un memorándum de entendimiento allá por septiembre del 24, luego nos reunimos de nuevo en mayo del 25 para ver cómo cómo trabajábamos en una nueva iniciativa de CAF que tuviera un foco especial en la infancia y en la juventud. Como ven, en este tipo de foros uno mira los grandes temas: energía, transición energética, transformación digital, infraestructura. Son como los grandes temas, y los que estamos en los temas sociales tratamos que levantar la mano y decir, y nosotros no se olviden de la educación, no se olviden de los niños, no se olviden de los temas de salud, que también son importantes.
Let's not forget about health. We're concerned about more and the development. So this is where we need to gather people. Um, we gathered with UNICEF, and then in September we started a new instrument or a new program, Banco Futuro, where the idea is to capture funds for social programs, investment of states, early childhood and food, and to have a certification and a technical assistance by UNICEF, UN agency specialized on health and youth, so that we could get the support so that we can make this, to make sure that people could quickly understand that we were going to have a conclusive presence SCAF. So this is where we started this initiative in September. And the UN, and we're right, and 6 months after we're launching the first bond, and the finance vice president, Gabriel Fedespeto, will talk about this first bond and what's the response of the investors. But to us, this is an important milestone for the bank, and to position ourselves. And to us, it was important. UNICEF, after the long trajectory, gathering funds for the childhood and youth, and we as bank, we have other projects or other larger projects that are not so focused like them. So instead of collecting millions, they should get billions. UNICEF should join something so important, and we should focus billions of dollars towards the childhood programs. So we are very. This is an upgrade to UNICEF in its capacity of impact, because they will be providing support to guide the funds that we need to get in order to apply this into programs that will provide these type of support to accomplish the objectives. So this is important. We will talk to Kiki, and the investors, when we have someone in the company, and they ask for money, the idea is to buy the raffle that they do at the end of the year, or if you commit to something else and you provide money. So let's invest in these cost $1,000. So we need to commit a little bit more, and then as investor, we invest in bonds of CAF, because this is a development plan, and then it will be more focused. The social bonus of CAF. But in those programs that can guarantee that it will go to health and education for the youth, but there are more steps to follow. The investors having a commitment to the social decree, they have a foundation. Apart from the revenue at the corporate level, they invest in social purposes. But there's an intermediate field, which is to create a trust fund that will be created by CAF to participate as investor, but also in the decision making, to share in such a way that we can make investment decisions. So it is not about committing to the foundation or a budget, but I contribute to the development in in that trust fund. I may have a return expectation that is lesser, but perhaps not so secured, but I do know that I will be making decisions and I will be providing information in terms of the status of each program. So let's and hopefully every time we meet with Kitty, we set a goal so that we hopefully this September, once we have the UN assembly, we can announce the creation of this equity fund to capture more investors for more engagement and participation. This is a greater engagement. I want to commit more into and perhaps have something different, but me making decisions. So hopefully this is the step that we can follow. And in CAF, this has been a significant transformation. We have the whole finance team committed to this. And this is the good thing about CAF. The social and the finance area, they're working together, the heart and the heart together. I don't mean to say that we don't have a heart in a head, but together we're working together. The financial head, the instruments to channel funds towards childhood programs. So, Gabriel Pepeto, please let us know how this launching is taking place and how this is playing a good role. Thank you, Pablo. Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me? We are, as Pablo indicated, we're very pleased because this week we accomplished a dream that we have talked about for 6 months, which has to do with the first bond within the Banco Futuro initiative of CAFLAC. Not only are these are two transactions, not just one, and we're very pleased. The first one was made by mid this week. We have Valentina who's supporting us from the bank. We This is something equivalent to $61 million, and today, and the Sweden market, thanks to Manuel and to the whole team, that they didn't go to bed to achieve the second transaction, which apart from being novel, as indicated by Pablo, which has to do with the social aspects, the support to childhood and youth, it is technological because it is the first digital bond, which has to do with blockchain. So we're hitting two birds on the same stone. So these two transactions add amount to $225 million approximately. As you well know, the idea in this first phase is to achieve $1 billion. So we are one day, and we have 25% already achieved, so we will be progressing a lot. As we mentioned, this is framed within the initiative. We are also proud because this is the first multilateral bank that is implementing within this funding program the CLIF methodology as described, and and we're really proud of this. And I want
La demanda fue súper importante, muy grande. Estoy seguro que va a seguir estando en las próximas transacciones. Entonces se combina una solidez financiera como es CAF, pero con un propósito que es este programa de Banco Futuro. Simplemente para finalizar, estamos seguros que esto invertir en la niñez y en la juventud es invertir en una productividad futura, la cohesión social y la estabilidad de nuestros países. Y para nosotros
and development, and this program is being executed as we speak. We're going to have a panel. We're going to invite the CEO of the and the vice president of LUXIC in Chile. I'm going to start with Kitty. We have a relation with her, I mean, going back and forth with lots of work to achieve this point and the issuance of this bond. What I wanted to ask you first is why UNICEF has collected. Why is it engaging in a new venture for you to invest your know-how in the government where you are executing it? Why are you so involved in something so new with less control of that money that will be channeled, but with a larger volume?
Da mucha vergüenza hablar en español. Me falta la práctica. So I am sorry. I'm going to switch to English with my apologies. And I first want to say, Pablo, to you personally, thank you for the leadership of CAF. You don't know that yet, but I am going to make you an honorary ambassador for children because your enthusiasm, the way you combine heart and head, corazón, and la cabeza, that's what we need. It's not what bankers are known for quite generally. And so I think it is really unique what I see here with Banco Futuro LAC. This is an innovation that is absolutely transformational. And I think what we need to realize here is that children often don't sit in the boardrooms, right? When financial decisions are taken that will affect their lives. And what Banco Futuro LAC is actually doing is making them the center of every investment decision they are taking. 5 billion, 50 million children. Why we do this together with CAF and the Child Lens Investing Framework that we have developed as UNICEF is because we have to move away from projects. We have to start making systemic, sustainable impact at scale for children that need us. And that requires a rethink of where we put our money. Do we put our money where our mouth is or just where we can make money? And that's what Banco Futuro LAC is all about. It is showcasing really that financial innovation is not a theoretical concept. It is something that actually can transform lives. And in this case, it transforms lives of children. And why is that so important? And here, I think I have to go back to what you read in the newspapers every day. We can see that the world of multilateralism is eroding. We can see that the dream of a life in dignity for every child, everywhere, is no longer a given from the traditional donors as we know them. And we have seen as UNICEF around the world that financing for children is massively reduced. So what do we then do? We've just seen a study from the Lancet, not done by us, an independent academic journal, that states that because of funding cuts from the traditional donors, 14 million people will die by 2030, unnecessarily, totally preventable, out of which 4.5 million are children under 5. Now, you may say that's first and foremost a child's crisis. I am telling you that this is our crisis. Because the moment we are unable to vaccinate our children, those diseases will start to travel. The moment that parents can't provide for their children education, health, nutrition, everything we take for granted, it fuels despair, it fuels displacement that will not keep within jurisdictional boundaries. The more fragile the lives of children become, the more fragile the world is becoming. And that is what we can prevent. That is why the social bond we're launched today in Switzerland is not just a beacon of innovation, it is a beacon of hope. That we can transform the lives with financial instruments that we were only dreaming about a year ago, right? Why am I saying that this is so important? In the world, ladies and gentlemen, there's 2.2 billion children. That's quite a lot. That's 30% of humanity, but unfortunately, it's 50% of the world's poor. They're overrepresented in the realm of poverty. We have a lot of catching up to do. And that is not a given. Their future is not a given. It's not predetermined. It's predicated on the choices that financial institutions like CAF make. It is predicated on inseparable choices that all of us make every day on whether we put our money where our mouth is. And I know that children are often seen as a thing from the corazon. They're cuddly, they're cute. It's the morally right thing to do. But it is also an economically viable proposition to invest in, ladies and gentlemen. I'm an economist by background. I know that money requires return on investment. But every dollar we invest through CAF or other financial mechanisms will yield $10 of return in societal benefits, faster growth, more stable societies. Every dollar we invest in education for a child will yield $20 in future GDP growth. Now, if that would be your personal portfolio of investments, you would be drooling and you would immediately put all your money in there. And on top of that, every year we put in education reduces the chance that an adolescent kid will be recruited by armed groups. That is what this concept is doing. With the lens that we have developed, CAF can invest in children, A, avoid unintended harm, that's great, but B, and much more importantly, working with governments in the region to produce investable propositions that do good, that grow economies, that ensure children survive and thrive, and through that, families, communities, the countries, and if not, society as a whole will thrive. And for me, when it comes to this concept, we can never be ambitious enough, right? I happen to be a fan of Michelangelo, and beyond the beautiful paintings that he made, he was also a philosopher, and he said one thing that guides me every day, that the greatest danger for most of us as human beings is not that we put our ambition too high and that we fall short, but much rather that we put our ambition far too low and we make the mark. When it comes to children and the future of your countries, that is simply a no-go when it comes to UNICEF. And I'm incredibly grateful for the leadership of CAF, for your personal leadership to make that a reality in this important and fantastic region.
Thank you very much, Kitty. Wonderful. Muchas gracias, Kitty. La verdad que muy emotivas tus palabras.
Words. Isabella, you represent a world of people who lead companies, and you get revenues, and you see that there are challenges that could be shared for a social purpose, and I think that this is a part of the business world that is committed as much as possible. You can buy the raffle of a social organization to contribute or to a donation, but then afterwards, those who commit are their own foundations. They have the business world through a foundation, and they commit everything they do through the different programs. I don't know this world of investments. What commits you most? How can you make sure that we can have more people like you in this process? Thank you so much for the invitation, and I want to commend this new partnership with UNICEF, as indicated by Kitty. This is absolutely innovative, and these help us raise the standards. People are looking at this with a different perspective, and as you indicated, this has to do with how the problems that are affecting children and youth are structural, and for structural problems, solutions, and this is fundamental in order to escalate this type of solutions that we so urgently need. And back to your question from the social investment standpoint, I am convinced in Chile, I'm Chilean, and I am convinced that our countries grow when you contribute and when you pay back what you can give. And countries are made up of people, and if we do not invest on people, we will fail. This is not just a structure of people. Bridges and roads are important, but this is important. It is important to invest in our people and in the human capital, leading countries to be what they are currently are. The youth, when we have the future, this is where the investment is extensively indicated that the ROI is important, especially in the childhood. But let's be practical. We're here because we had a certain level of education, or several of them, and why can't we make sure that they can all be conveyed with the same message? We have to look beyond, and let's try to find those spaces. And this is completely structural from the health standpoint, having good food. And it is the responsibility of the society to pursue the future of of our countries, and the way you treat them. This is the sign that you convey, and how you can make sure that they can react in the future. So it is important to prioritize the work on the youth and children, so that they can be given the opportunities they deserve. Going back to the opportunity that we have with this bond and the bank, social work and the future development work is difficult. By no means I want to say that this is simple. It is complex, and it is multi-systemic, and and I think that this coordination is important. It is not taking place. There has to be an intention, and for this purpose, we need to have these actors to contribute to these guidance, to follow and contribute. The framework of UNICEF is paving the way for those of us working on childhood to be clear about the good and bad things. And I think that the quality, it is so important. This is what dictates the result. We have measurable results with social information, and therefore we are going back to the structure. So congratulations. That's a good point. Kitty, when we were there in Washington, UNICEF in the at the UN is present. It is extended all over the world. And I remember when we were in the launching, you mentioned that Roberto was very proud. Roberto Menezes is the regional director of UNICEF in Latin America. And he was really proud because he compares himself with the other regional directors of Asia, Africa, the Middle East. So he, so his region had the first own bank. So that's something that he achieved, and he's been getting WhatsApp and UNICEF in the Middle East. And what are you doing? How much are you getting? Do we have an own bank at this time? Please let me know. So your intention is to bring this experience from Latin America of convergence, working together, UNICEF and a regional bank to have more funds for the youth and for children. And you're trying to bring this to other regions. Not Roberto has a regional perspective, and he's really proud to be the first region to do it. Now that you have your universal, when you now need now to organize this on the Middle East or Africa, what are you going to say? How are you planning to move this?
Look, this is a very special region. It's a region with ambition. It's a region with a lot of knowledge. And this is where big impact, scalable, sustainable impact is just a realistic possibility. And so, what I hope to do out of this is to make sure that what happens here doesn't stay here. This is done in the region, with the region, and for the region, but actually, this should be for the world. And so, what I want to do, and I know my dear colleague, regional director Roberto, will say, but what about my position? LAC was the first. But I am adamant that what we have done with Banco Futuro should be the new normal for every regional development bank. There is no reason why any development bank should not put children at the heart of investment decisions, because it simply makes good economic sense. Good economic sense from a return on investment perspective, good economic sense from a political stability angle, good economic sense from whichever way you look at it. So we were discussing to have a meeting, possibly here in Panama, with the heads of all the regional development banks to showcase the innovation, the financial innovation that CAF has done, and to scale that to a global model that becomes the new normal. Because we at UNICEF, we have a tagline, and it literally is for every child. And we will not rest until we have reached every child in this region. And then we still have a lot of homework to do in the other regions. So I hope that what happens here in this part of the global south will become the global North Star for every multilateral development bank, if not every financial institutions. It's perfectly doable. We at UNICEF can help with the technical expertise like we did with CAF, how you apply the Child Lens Investing Framework. We can all do better. And quite frankly, children deserve a whole lot better.
Muchas gracias, Kitty. Ya que estamos, seguimos con los aplausos. No es lo común en los paneles, pero ya se ve que la audiencia está más comprometida que nosotros con esta causa. Y tiene la necesidad de aplaudir cada cosa que se diga. Isabela, del mundo de la empresa, siempre que invierte, busca un retorno y lo mide. Todo el mundo hace números y mide el retorno, y mide el retorno, y mide el retorno. Y históricamente, cuando pone fondos que no son para el negocio y los ponía para fondos con un objetivo social, un propósito social, al principio un poco daba lo mismo y un reporte dijera, no, pero hubo 3 niños gay. Todo era bueno. Hace unos 15 años, yo creo que Duflo y Banerjee estudios de impacto de todo tipo de programas sociales, tanto de organizaciones sociales, fundaciones como del gobierno, empezaron a medir el diferencial que hacía, no solo si tuvo un buen resultado y mirá, acá tengo 200 niños que ahora se gradúan, sí, pero ¿fue ese programa el que hizo la diferencia? ¿O esos niños igual hubieran mejorado porque había otras condiciones que mejoraron a la vez y tú te estás como subiendo caballito de las otras condiciones que mejoraron para decir que fue gracias al tuyo? Y ahí nacieron todos los estudios de impacto para de alguna manera aislar ciertas variables y poder con un poco más de precisión decir si necesariamente ese programa de alimentación, necesariamente ese programa de emprendimientos, necesariamente ese programa de educación fue el que logró el resultado que ahora me estás mostrando.
To determine
Yo creo que todas las fundaciones, los que ya ponían de una manera dinero más profesionalmente en propósito social, empezaron a decir, bueno, a las organizaciones sociales, bueno, muéstrenme, hagan estudios de impacto y muéstrenme. Después el estudio de impacto es un poco caro y entonces solo se hace para programas grandes.
this is taking place to do similar impact studies. Now that you have been leading this organization as vice president and vice president of the foundation, but you also participate in the business group in general, what are you asking? How are you measuring this? What are you asking from these programs so that you can make sure that this purpose is accomplished or to learn when things are not accomplished? I think that there has been a very important evolution, socially speaking, of something that I have mentioned, especially in the Latin American region where we have a Catholic inheritance. We are based on charity in the past, and this is changing towards a perspective to professionalize the social sector, and there's a social logic. Looking at this, not from the philanthropy the standpoint, I may be running short to demand this from the system. So a social investment, you're investing something that has an alternative cost. And what we're pursuing with the investment of every penny is the best return. And it is not so much economic. It has to produce a change that you want to get. There has to be a change that we're expecting at the school or food service or so on. So this has changed a lot because we want to see, we're cautious when investing, and it is very difficult to invest in doing things right. When you make a mistake, you want to make small mistakes, you want to go back very quickly, and that's the risk capital that we have in the social sector, where we need to have this investment, which where we can make mistakes. It has to be small, but always trying to escalate whatever works. So I think that the logic has changed in terms of how we work in this sector. We want to escalate the solutions that have worked because this scale is an ethical imperative when you have a good solution. So this is lowering this cost to zero. So it is interesting. How can we get these worlds together? The social part was seen different, a second, like a second perspective. But when you combine these worlds to have this something combined on here, when we look at this process, it is important. The social is as important, and therefore there is a change of criteria. So approaching the world of the social to the most financial or business concepts, it also contribute because we're getting these worlds together. And in my opinion, the social sector is there as a connection between the public and private. And in this bridge or connection, this is where we can see this space for things to work that are not complying in the public or private. But by demanding uh, uh, this or thinking about these terms, I think that the dynamic is changing. How can we find solutions, and the vocabulary, the words that we use in this sector have a great influence. So because we're trying to find a social return, and this is closing these gaps, and it is closing these um, uh, bridges. We are filled with the structural framework. As I mentioned, we have structural problems with structural solutions. So, and of course, looking at the long-term vision, nothing is going to be solved overnight. This requires coordination, as I mentioned, but this is a long-term perspective. And then we need to look at different terms which will help us remove that barrier to get measurable results.
Y yo tenía una última pregunta que va de la mano de esto que anunciamos que queremos crear este nuevo fondo de inversión social. Y hoy, Kitty, me decías que ese tipo de inversor, de alguna manera, puede salir de los que son donantes de ustedes. Es decir, los que donan, ustedes donan, y llamémosle va todo donación pura. Cuando creamos un fondo de inversión, estamos con un riesgo mayor, pero hay un cierto retorno. Entonces, esta gente que dona un poco, invierte seguro, invierte a riesgo, hace varios tipos de inversiones, y que este sería un programa más dentro de su portafolio de inversiones. ¿Dónde podemos conseguir esa gente? Ya para irle diciendo acá al vicepresidente de Finanzas, irle dando letra de dónde ir a buscar, qué es lo que quieren, qué piensan, por qué van a invertir, buscando un retorno, y te van a donar, por un lado darte dinero donado y por otro lado te van a invertir un poco a riesgo, buscando un retorno económico también.
I think in this room we have everything and everybody we need. And then we'll add a little more, right? Let's not forget, I mean, at UNICEF, what we can bring is also a huge network of partners. We've been around the block. We're celebrating 80 years this year, starting from the ashes of the Second World War to become an organization present in 190 countries, where we work with philanthropy, with corporate sectors, with high net worth individuals, with development banks, with every imaginable institution, to ensure that children actually get what they deserve. And that is the perspective of a life in dignity. That's the only thing we can create together, and none of us can do that alone. And if we would create a fund like this, what we can bring in is the partners that we have from philanthropy, from corporate sector, from other parts, because we can only do this together. And yes, there may be a risk, but let's look at risk in relation to the return that you can get in terms of societal stability, the chance to create a life worth living for children. I don't know, how many of you are parents here? Hands up. Just think, with this kind of portfolio, with this kind of fund, you can do what you do as a parent for your children. You will always run harder. You will always give it your extra. Because this is an investment in the future of your next generation. And what we do with this fund is an investment in the next generation of Latin Americans that will shape the world. We can totally do this, and I'm adamant that we will. So see you next time with the fund.
Muchas gracias, Kitty. Y para finalizar ya contigo, Isabela,
Kitty knows all these investors because she wants to support children. You know them as colleagues. You know these investors because your colleagues invest in your own foundations. How would you encourage them to contact this? What would you tell them to say, well, it is worth risking or adding this possibility to investment portfolio because there will be control, follow up, there will be more information compared to buying a bond or a raffle of a social organization. I think that, I mean, adding more actors, it is very appealing at the beginning. There will be valleys or flat lines. New things are maybe appealing, and then the interest decreases. The difficulties to sustain, and you need to understand the problem that you're trying to tackle. When you fall in love with the problem, I mean, you commit in the long term. When you understand what you want to solve, you know that this is not just something circumstantial or something, you know the complexity behind that. By understanding this problem, you will fall in love with this and you will find the best solutions. And that's how you will be sustaining through time. And and to sustain this interest, you need to be based on the doers and who will be super transparent and to be aware of the outcomes of how to involve yourselves on the other side, on the flip side of the coin, because it is important to be on the side of the investor. If you don't have this contact to reality, uh, you are playing with something, and it is important to you shouldn't lose that human reality, that you have to understand the problem and the results. I mean, communicating yourselves on a permanent basis, and this is a joint learning. In order for you to be here, you need to learn, and by involving yourself, you will learn even more. For those of you making the investment and for those executing, so there's a fortuitous um, um, meeting in that connection to get to know. So I think that this is the project that keeps you interested. So this is the promotion. So those are great tips, Isabella. Thank you so much. And to wrap up, when we started with this program, we ended up talking to finance, and I had to speak to my vice president, Christian Asinelli, and I talked about UNICEF and the initial ideas, and he said, "Go for it." So let's speed it up. And Christian, I'm sorry, today we're committing a new instrument, a social investment fund, risk fund, or a hedge fund that wants to invest in the different countries. And this is something that we will execute with UNICEF. And so we're going to do this wrap up with you. So I have 1 minute and 37 seconds. Good afternoon, everyone. Very pleased to be here supporting you in this great idea, this great initiative that has been promoted from the vice presidency, and the original idea is on the president of CAF, who's coming with different ideas that will translate into facts. So I want to mention a couple of things in order for us to feel secure.
Here we have our Vice President of Finances, our Treasury Manager, and so on. And it's not because I work in CAF, but at some point I worked in the government and I saw the finance teams, and I can say this not because I'm a part of the institution, but because it's reality. CAF is a bank that in its finance team has people committed to the development, and that they act like magicians because they get the financing out of nowhere for the needs to address the needs of countries at hard times and in record time. We have approved finances or financing for countries who needed urgently finally, and we have done it in 5 days in large amounts. So feel at ease because we're gonna need the money. We're gonna get the money that we need. Second, we have a team in the human development management and social management where all the education teams are working in very strongly, and we also have a commitment in the areas of the organization. And it also has to do with urban development, where boys and girls and will live. It's going to have to do with infrastructure, technology, the use of artificial intelligence. And third, we have the best partnership that we could have to carry this out, which is UNICEF. So we feel at ease. And as a general concept, I would like to say that we are very clear that we need to finish to close many gaps, but the main gap we need to close with is the social gap, poverty. We cannot continue to live in a community where the rest of the people are not developed. It is key when we look to our sides. It's fundamental to be successful collectively to help people around us, and that's the purpose of a bank because we know that talent is distributed homogeneously all around the world, regardless if you're in a rich family, a poor family, or you live in a favela or a closed neighborhood in a poor family, but the closed neighborhood is rich. It doesn't matter if you're in the north and the south, if you come from a rich country, poor country. What it's not homogeneously distributed are opportunities, and this project will develop new opportunities. This project will provide the possibility of thousands and thousands of lessons to overcome poverty and to help them improve, to have new opportunities. That is a commitment we have from CAF. That is a commitment we have in UNICEF. That is a commitment we have as an institution that we will continue to work on very strongly because once again, nobody can develop in a community that does not develop itself. So thank you all of those who are joining us in this initiative from their origins. And now I think we have this challenge, the biggest challenge ahead of us, which is trying to give the qualitative and quantitative jump to make things a reality.
Ahorita se está escuchando. Porque después nos pasa que entonces no sabemos perder.
Testing, testing, English. Canal de inglés, probando. Testing, testing. This is the English channel. This is a tester. Testing interpretation.
The Adam Smith Center for Economic Freedom. You don't just learn, you achieve. Through our interdisciplinary Bachelor of Science in Business and Government Leadership, you'll gain perspective, innovate, and connect with real-world leaders.
It starts with me.
It starts with me.
It starts with me. It starts with you.
Leadership starts here.
Empieza acá. Testing, canal de inglés. Probando canal de inglés para efectos de la interpretación. Buenas tardes. Probando canal de inglés. Canal de inglés para la interpretación. Canal de inglés.
Perspective, innovate, and connect with real-world leaders.
It starts with me.
It starts with me.
It starts with me. It starts with you.
Leadership starts here. The Adam Smith Center for Economic Freedom at Florida International University. Exploring the intersection of government policy.
Inglés, probando el canal de inglés, 1, 2, 3, probando inglés, probando la nueva configuración para la interpretación en el canal de inglés, probando 1, 2, 3, probando 1, 2, 3, canal de inglés.
Through multidisciplinary programs and fellowships, we empower students in public policy and free enterprise.
Canal de inglés, probando.
Political and economic systems, host global conferences and seminars, and improve public policy by providing informed analysis to decision makers. At the Adam Smith Center, we blend knowledge and action to shape a prosperous, free future and foster a vibrant community of leaders. We inform, innovate, influence, inspire. The Adam Smith Center for Freedom at FIU.
Les invitamos a tomar asiento para retomar las presentaciones con el siguiente panel. Les recordamos que nuestra transmisión está disponible en 3 idiomas vía streaming y contamos con servicio de traducción simultánea. Si lo requieren, pueden tomar uno de los headsets disponibles en la entrada. Por favor, vamos a continuar, así que vamos a tomar asiento. Ha sido una tarde con muchos temas de interés e importantes, así que vamos a continuar con la sesión. Les recordamos a todos los asistentes que pueden compartir sus experiencias y reflexiones en redes sociales utilizando el hashtag Foro Económico CAF y seguirnos en @agendacaf en todas nuestras redes sociales, en Instagram, X y Facebook. También saludamos a toda la comunidad digital que está conectada desde el canal de YouTube de CAF para que puedan continuar compartiendo sus opiniones y comentarios con el hashtag Foro Económico CAF. A continuación, tendremos la oportunidad de presenciar el conversatorio Redes sin Fronteras, la ruta crítica de la interconexión eléctrica latinoamericana. Recibamos a Cici Áñez, periodista de El Deber y moderadora de este espacio. También la estarán acompañando el señor César Butrón, presidente del COE.
President of the COES, Andrés Villegas, Director of Colombia Panama Interconnection, Felix Fernandez Cho for Latin America and the Caribbean, and the General Directorate of International Association of the European Union, Ronnie Rodriguez, Vice Minister of Energy of Costa Rica. But before that, we're going to pass the floor to Sandra Conde, Deputy Director of Mining, Gas and Energy of CAF. She has a very important message for all of you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sandra Conde, the Director of Mining, Gas and Energy of CAF, and I want to welcome you all to this panel on networks without borders, the critical route for interconnection in Latin America. The Latin American interconnection is a fundamental process for a resilient connection. These interconnections allow sharing resources among countries, optimizing the use of primary sources and channel renewables towards great demand areas. This reduces operational costs and this enables an energy transition through the technology and the integration of markets. However, despite these benefits and the important efforts made by our countries, and despite the support that we have provided to the multilateral banking, the electric interaction is limited. So this is why part of the mission of CAF as development bank is to maintain a strategic role, an active role to strengthen the electric and integration, the security and the supply and sustainable development. This is a multilateral ally on regional developments. So the purpose of this panel is to see the regulatory, socio-environmental, and environmental challenges limiting the electric interconnection of the region, trying to decipher and establishing a roadmap for this transition process. Without any further ado, I'm going to pass the floor to our moderator, Ifi Anis from El Deber, who will be leading this panel. Thank you so much, and then welcome everyone. everything is energy, and that's a challenge that we have in Latin America to progress on this integration. The interconnection of energy and electric networks in the country allows sharing resources and optimizing primary sources, improving resiliency with respect to failures, and reducing operational losses by channeling these resources to areas to it improves the system and it facilitates the system in a more organized way by combining markets. In Latin America, this interconnection is gaining relevance. It strengthens the supply, it reduces the cost of energy, benefiting from the geographical resources, wind, and it also promotes the cooperation of countries, promoting the economic development and in creating resiliency. In this panel, we will analyze which are the technical, regulatory, and financial challenges of electric interconnection in Latin America and the Caribbean.
Transición energética en América Latina y el Caribe. Comenzamos la ronda de preguntas con
Station in Latin America and the Caribbean. Mr. Cesar Butron is joining us this afternoon. In Latin America and the Caribbean, countries have advanced in the expansion of renewable energies and diversification of the electric grids and in the strengthening of the national systems. However, the region still operates as isolated electric markets where every market should balance by itself the variability of the demand, the accelerated entrance of renewable energies, and the growing challenges linked to climate change. In this context, what are the benefits, the strategic benefits that you can mention that are more relevant and that countries in Latin America could capture should they advance decisively towards a greater electric interconnection with neighbor countries? First and foremost, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for this invitation. And before we get started, I would like to do a disclaimer. The electric operator in Peru is a nonprofit organization, meaning whatever I say does not represent the official position of the Peruvian government. The position will be technical in nature, and the benefits, you have mentioned them, because now I'm free to answer them. Any electric engineer could say that the first benefit, irrefutable benefit of an interconnection is that both all systems that are interconnected are stronger than separate systems. This improves reliability, this improves the rotating reserve, and a series of characteristics, electric characteristics, as long as the integration is well done, and this is important. If the protections do not adjust, you can it could be that a failure of a system could join the other one and both would collapse. So this would be the main condition. If this is done well, the system, the resulting system will be stronger and uh, all of the benefits will be available. This could be summarized in a single world complementarity. If they have different prices, if the low price is exported to the high price country and so on. And this is derived from many other things, taking advantage of hydraulic energy, renewable energy, and taking advantage of the differences of consumption profiles, etc. Everything is part of complementing. If we have these integrations, we can noticeably take advantage of this complementarily, and natural resources would be better taken advantage of. So, in general terms, these are the advantages, the main benefits of this electric sector and this management, should they be well done. Mr. Felix Fernandez, the European Union has advanced in the electrical integration and in markets that are coupled and governance mechanisms, supranational mechanisms. From your experience, what are the most critical elements that Latin America should prioritize in order to build interconnections and more deeper markets, avoiding bottlenecks and costs faced by Europe in its process? Very well. Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone. We are a good example. We are the good example with, or it's different to say the role model or just a good example, because in Europe we have a long way to go. It is what is clear is that in a market, an integrated market like the European, having an electric disintegration just damages the integration and the market. The European Union has been working on the different ministries of energy, the regulators, to work with the different interconnections. Why? Because there are many people that can say, why don't you work in the secondary and national transmission? As your colleague has mentioned, the national systems have advantages, but they have an inconvenience. They are isolated. From the European standpoint, what is the motivation for this work? In the first place, we are all listening not only to the integration, but what for? If Latin America wants to take advantage of everything they have, they need to go walk the path of industrialization. The path of industrialization will always be run if there is available energy, if it's cheap and stable. And in addition, in the case of Latin America, when you have one of the best natural batteries, which is the blessing of hydraulic energy in Latin America, and that's a battery. This is why you have all the necessary elements. The problem with interconnections, where we have centered, always ends up being a political problem. Why? Because matching two completely different systems can be complementary or supplementary, like we just said, but it has many different access to it. For example, we are now working in Colombia and in Panama in the intervention, and we know that what seems to be an easy interconnection from the standpoint of infrastructure, it's quite complex because it has many different nuisances to it, and this requires knowledge, requires integration, requires political integration, but it also requires to advance with the regional vision as we are doing in the regional Central American market. And this is what we are seeking. This is what we have in the European Commission. We have just launched in Brussels an electric integration plan with a reinforcement in laws. That is the thing. If we focus only on production and producing and fail to see the integration and the network, the production will end up in bottlenecks and will not be able to continue. Thank you very much, Andres. In the region, we already count on the valuable experiences such as CEPAC that has proven a solid institutional network with clear roles in the regulation, operation, and governance. We can increase the regional exchanges and the trust between countries by strengthening energy security and attracting investment. Based on these experiences, what key elements should countries prioritize to strengthen institutional trust and guarantee sustainability of future projects of electric interconnection so that they can be considered success cases? Okay, good afternoon. Thank you very much. Well, perhaps it was mentioned that Europe is maybe not a reference, but it is in when it comes to integration. And TIPAC is a wonderful example that we are all trying to replicate. First and foremost, all engineers use acronyms. For those of you, CIEPAC means System of Interconnection, Electric Interconnection of the countries of Central America, and it is the scheme developed in Central America to make up a regional market, a market that has plenty of elements because it's not only the confirmation of the market, but the network and institutions as well. What are the key elements and what can we learn from this trust generation. Central America, many years before us, before we started, they started walking this path. We discovered, we were discovered everything that was happening in Central America, and in this generation of trust, well, this generation of trust began with the benefit of the integration and the need to be together as opposed to isolated, like Felix mentioned. And they have been clear about the fact that being integrated doesn't mean to become dependent, that being self sufficient is not a solution, and at the end, it's better to be together. There is a great learning there. What they have been clear about, it has been translated into mandates, and that's where the first key element starts from for the region in Central America. They took the work of building a tool, which is the framework treaty that defines the conditions. They will keep the connection between countries. That is not an easy task. It has to go through the assemblies. It took time to develop. As a matter of fact, it's never perfect. There has been a first protocol, second protocol, and that incorporates changes. In that regional integration vision, they established a regional view, so not only a general mandate, but just grounded to instructions that are part of a set of rules, because between countries there will be more trust to do things should the rules be defined, should there be mechanisms to address controversies, and the conditions are clear in terms of how to operate and how to address the need of operating correctly. The next key element that was also addressed by the CIEPAC was to build an original infrastructure. It's not only about capturing the resources, but having the means and the highways so that those electrons can move from country to country. And that network was created by enabling that movement. It is a key element that helps because everyone knows that the plant is physically in the other side of the frontier. And they have not only defined the infrastructure to do a planned integration and to see the market as a whole. And as a final element in the trust generation, and we're looking at many projects and see it back from a conception, is building is to bring the benefit of the scheme of financing and uh, bank, banking option of a solution that will bankerization of the solution. This will guarantee that the roadmap is fulfilled. If we combine all those elements, I think that this all adds up, and we will have the trust that is required so that things can work the way we want them to. Mr. Ron Rodriguez, as you have mentioned about the CIEPAC as a deep integration program, is one of the examples that we have in Latin America where interconnection has been addressed, not only from the infrastructure, but also as a regional project with market and unique and institutionality. Looking into the future, what is required today to take this integration to the next level? Thank you. Okay, thank you. Uh, Thank you, CAF, for making this a reality. Thank you, Sandra, for making this work and this panel, and especially the audience, both virtual and on-site, which is a lifeblood. Um, the question you're asking is, I'm going to complicate it. I'm going to ask myself, What for? Why am I interested on taking advantage of CFAC and taking it to another level? And I will mention that here in the center of this development, the user is placed first, meaning the consumer, the residential consumer, the industrial consumer, the commerce, trade, in order to bring uh, a development and achieve this productive uh, disinvolvement. So there has to be a regulatory framework. We need to take advantage of environmental elements, social elements, economic elements. In other words, this has many dimensions. The first one, I will start to um, discuss the most trivial one, which is environmental. In a region like Central America, where we have a huge capacity to use renewable resources that are intermittent and variable. In fact, we produce surpluses, a market of surpluses. There's no better solution than an integration. There's no use in working with optimal local surpluses. Those of you who have work on global optimization know what I'm talking about. This is key in order to define how is it that we take advantage of the most interconnections. But in 2024, due to the Niña phenomenon, there was a discussion with scientists and a relation between climate change and the Anus phenomenon. And what scientists are saying is that it's every time more abrupt, unpredictable, and intense. This is why the NOAA in the US is taking way more time to predict. And what has happened in a topic that is vulnerable from the environmental standpoint is that in 2024, the temperature of the Pacific and the Caribbean Ocean and the Pacific Ocean was reached equilibrium. So there wasn't just water, but there wasn't a difference in masses. And this means that we need to be ready. So it's better to use batteries or chemical energy or gas, natural gas, to interconnect. This is an environmental variable that needs to be established. Social is to take the tariff or the rate where it belongs, and I would have to emphasize in legal matters. We were discussing whether CEPAL could be solved in the third protocol, the one we are uh, going to with an agreement of ministers. Now we're taking this to Congress to provide legal security or safety. This is what actors ask for. I thought we had achieved enough trust to make this enough, but we just have left um, the option of legal security just to make long term contracts, not only spot contracts, so that we can better use the system. So, in interest of time, that would be all for now, and then I can deepen my answer in the second reply. But considering the European Union is boosting global great way investment, the agenda of the region to promote sustainable um, energy. One opportunity you see for the interconnection in Latin America can become a strategic axis of cooperation, European Union, Latin America, and the Caribbean, so that Latin America can advance towards a deeper energy transition that allows for competitiveness, decarbonization, and resilience. I think the CEPAC example, once again, last year, the European Union with the European um, uh, Investment Fund placed a credit capacity of around 1 billion euros precisely to be able to advance in infrastructure and entrance of the second circuit, of the second line, and all the support infrastructure. Why? Because we are looking at how America wants to go in that direction. We have certain standards, or social, environmental standards, and technological standards that are very elevated. And we think that for Latin America to project towards the future in the most efficient way and in the most respectful way with the environment, we think we have a great room for work. In fact, one of the reasons we are here today is also the conversation we have with Colombia and Panama for interconnection. And in fact, along with the Inter-American Development Bank, we have generated a list of up to 20 interconnection projects that have been pending to be executed since many years ago, and where we start to see that there is a change, as it has happened in Colombia, Panama, or in the CIEPAC, we see that there is a change in political logic, where the different actors, regional actors, are changing and understanding that this is necessary, but they are before a need of financing and before a need of investment. And in addition to this, a need of fitting or, or gearing between different logics and so on. So this is where the European Union, with its integration tradition, can help through its industrial tradition and with its financial tradition. It can help Latin America so that little by little they can interconnect systems and work in that logic of taking care of the consumer, but in terms of taking care of the environment, which is one of the priorities that America and Europe are working jointly. Thank you. Andres, with the energy transition speeding up and the growing need to strengthen electrical safety in the region, it becomes indispensable to pass from isolated experiences to a more articulated strategy and a longer term one. What elements should a regional roadmap include to celebrate the energy transition and strengthening electric safety and energy transition in Latin America and the Caribbean? Have many things to mention here. I think it deep inside, we have all touched on the same things, and I will emphasize the fact that there is a great relation between interconnection in an energy transition context. We have spoken about the concept of that there is no transition without transmission, which is key, and given the complementarity of resources in different countries, it is important to have interconnections. It's key in order to guarantee that that transition can be guaranteed and we could have the best advantages. Transition has to do with integration, and integration won't happen in the absence of a roadmap and a defined plan. We have talked about CIEPAC. Felix has talked about interconnection Colombia and Panama. If we look at the map of the whole region, there are other initiatives that are working. The other is SENEA, the Andean interconnection system, electric interconnection system. There is a vision of integration from Colombia to Chile, including Bolivia. We have the CS South and we have Go North. Conorte. So the interesting piece of news is that there are different regional initiatives that basically cover the whole continent. One could ask if it makes sense thinking about a super macro roadmap of all those initiatives, or just to boost individually all those individual processes, and then we were looking for harmonization. So I think the purpose is that, and the good news is that each one of those initiatives, Serconocla, Cinea, Cepatia, Sur, they all have its own, or its own, each one has its own roadmap. So we don't need to think about the need of a single roadmap, but we can promote development through individual roadmaps. Now, what elements should they contain? Now we have roadmaps in every initiative, and in the near future, they're talking about 2030, and basically the elements are very similar. They have elements in common. Each roadmaps seeks to frame the basic initiatives in a mandate. We have heard about the importance of that mandate to generate trust and to ensure commitment and compliance. Mandate that we want to have to make things happen. We will have a regulatory element and the connection starts. Mandates that are usually political and high level generate guidelines that need to be translated in regulation. The mandate does not last and the regulation is necessary because the next component comes. Infrastructure needs to be developed and identified. Nobody develops infrastructure if they haven't defined the rules beforehand, the rules whereby this infrastructure will be operated and so on. So, mandate, regulation, and infrastructure are the three key elements of that roadmap. And once again, finances. We are in a world, in a real world, where we used to work trying to make projects more feasible based on an economic assessment that showed the purpose of interconnections, and it will be translated into benefits for countries and society. But finally, it's companies that the ones that execute projects, and they have to do this by ensuring profitability. That economic assessment needs to be translated into a financial assessment. That assessment will make sense. It will close the business case, yes or yes, if it's financial or not, with defined resources. Therefore, the financial part becomes a component, a key component of the roadmap, because someone needs to be thinking about this. This makes a lot of sense. Those huge batteries, those indirect batteries that allow for the taking advantage of the resources. How do we address all this? And it has been part of the conversations that we have had in the region. We have initiatives, and they all have a roadmap. And in parallel, governments have other means. There are dialogue and consultation mechanisms for certain topics. Something that we have tried to promote is telling governments that they shouldn't create an agenda for every initiative, but they should connect with initiatives that are defined. CELAC or the Pacific Alliance or the Andean Community should not generate a roadmap and interconnection or integration or transition, but they should recognize uh, that CIEPAC and CINEA exist, and therefore the access of energy-related work is the combination thereof. Or Mercosur has a CSUR initiative, and they should connect with each initiative, because to the extent we can boost a single roadmap, it will be easier for all. Okay, Ronnie, the interconnection, the regional interconnection, has become more relevant as a tool to integrate renewables and to reduce costs and to strengthen the energy security or safety. From your experience, what are the main decisions in terms of policies and regulatory frameworks that allow for this interconnection projects with neighbor countries to be feasible and sustainable in time? In addition to the previous question and my last intervention, I will say something that seems pretty basic, but is based in trust. It is a cultural dimension. And trust is one of the key topics when it comes to multilateral treaties, because it has to be clear. The framework has to be clear. The framework where the exchange will take place, there's no space for corruption. It is non-negotiable. And therefore, if there's trust and there's no corruption, any of the dimensions could be analyzed with no problem, economic, social, and so on. But I want to add something additional that has to do with convenience.
Pero también nos interesa la conexión con Panamá, Colombia, para integrar el sur, y nos interesa México, que inmediatamente conectaría a Estados Unidos, y para eso estamos trabajando con la Unión Europea en un proceso para entender cuáles son esos beneficios. Entonces, sí, los requisitos son pensar en grande, ser ambiciosos, tener pragmatismo, pero también llevar beneficio general y pensar entonces ahora en resiliencia y adaptación al cambio climático mediante la electrificación del sistema, con un propósito fundamental: autonomía y soberanía energética de la región y no depender de un commodity. Gracias.
Don César, el acelerado despliegue de energías renovables en la región abre sin duda oportunidades para aprovechar. ¿Cómo pudiera aprovecharse la complementariedad entre los mercados eléctricos en América Latina para mejorar la seguridad energética, facilitar la integración masiva de renovables y optimizar costos?
Sí, gracias. Bueno, se parece mucho a la primera pregunta, pero entonces voy a aprovechar para comentar todo lo que se ha dicho está muy bien y así debe ser y ese es el objetivo, pero hay problemas a resolver para contestar cómo podría aprovecharse. Primero, voy a tomar varios ejemplos. A ver, CIEPAC es un caso de éxito indudablemente, pero si vemos las longitudes involucradas para interconectar toda Sudamérica, vemos que estamos hablando de un orden de magnitud diferente y un costo de transmisión bastante diferente. Entonces, primero habría que ver si ese costo, que es bastante grande, justifica los beneficios de la interconexión. Seguramente que va a salir que sí, pero con las justas, porque de verdad que son distancias muy grandes y densidades poblacionales bajas, y por último, casi todas ubicadas cerca de las costas de los países. Entonces, por ahí hay un primer problema a resolver. Pero hay más problemas, por ejemplo, que hay que resolver. Por ejemplo, el tema de financiamiento no debería ser un problema, por lo menos en Perú, Chile, Colombia. ¿Por qué? Porque la transmisión en estos países se hace función de inversión privada, ¿no es cierto? Son contratos BOT, se planifica, se licita, el precio, el costo lo pone el ganador de la licitación y los reguladores de los países tienen que incluir eso en la tarifa que paga el cliente final y está asegurado. Con eso, con esa regulación, que son 30 años de contrato, esos agentes se van al banco y financian sin ningún problema. Y sin embargo, vemos que falta resolver. Uno de los problemas son las organizaciones políticas de los países. Hay unos países que están basados en sistemas de libre empresa, inversión privada, hay otros países en que el Estado hace todo. Entonces, eso complica y dificulta. El caso, por ejemplo, de la segunda línea de interconexión Perú-Ecuador ha costado que salga y todavía no termina de salir porque Ecuador es obra pública, ¿no es cierto? Y tiene que conseguir financiamiento y todo eso, y tiene todos los problemas de las obras públicas. Mientras que el Perú ya está listo, ya tiene un concesionario privado que ganó el concurso y ya lo puede hacer. Entonces, primero hay que resolver eso. Otra cosa son consideraciones técnicas que incrementan el costo, la diferencia de frecuencia. Sorprendentemente, tenemos 50 Hz y 60 Hz en los países. Hay que incluir las subestaciones convertidoras que cuestan, añaden al costo de transmisión. Entonces, ahí vamos contando todos los problemas que habría que resolver. Y se nos acaba de comentar que CIEPAC está un poco difícil hacer la mejora, el CIEPAC 2.0, porque hay que acudir al Congreso, ¿no es cierto?, para validar eso, para darle seguridad jurídica. En el caso de los países andinos no hay ese problema. Existe la Comunidad Andina que tiene varias decisiones, la última la decisión 816, que como ustedes saben es una ley supranacional, y todos los países andinos son partícipes y las reglas están dadas, y si queremos hacerle cambios, no se requiere recurrir al Congreso. Basta los ministerios de Relaciones Exteriores que deciden eso en el seno de la Comunidad Andina. Y sin embargo, no termina de ejecutarse la interconexión. Pero Chile no es miembro de la Comunidad Andina, no es problema. Se le dijo que se incorporara al capítulo de energía y Chile aceptó hacerlo. Y aún así, todavía no levanta. ¿Qué pasa? Y aquí vamos a las renovables. Si bien las renovables, la transición energética viene y son una oportunidad, también son un reto tremendo. Porque vamos a ver, en muchos países las inversiones renovables no son planificadas centralmente, son planificadas por el mercado, son ejecutadas por el mercado y los inversionistas simplemente invierten donde encuentran que es más rentable, donde está el mejor recurso. Y entonces, ¿qué pasa? Que la complementariedad desaparece porque los inversionistas van a donde está el recurso más disponible, más cercano a las líneas, y eso mata la complementariedad. Ejemplo, y por qué a mi juicio no se produce todavía la interconexión Perú-Chile, es que Chile tiene, el norte tiene muy buen sol, extraordinario sol, y el sur del Perú tiene un poquito menos, pero también muy buen sol. Entonces el norte de Chile está lleno de plantas solares fotovoltaicas y el sur del Perú se va a llenar de plantas solares fotovoltaicas. Y entonces, ¿qué hacemos en la noche? ¿no? Ahí desapareció la complementariedad. Entonces es otro asunto que no está realmente alineado con lo que se dice. ¿Y cómo alineamos los intereses de los inversionistas con las necesidades de integración de los sistemas? Y hablando de las hidroeléctricas, yo soy un hincha acérrimo de las centrales hidroeléctricas, creo que es casi la mejor opción que existe, pero resulta que por lo menos en los países en que se manejan por mercado, las hidroeléctricas ya no son factibles, porque todo se basa en licitaciones, los famosos PPA, Power Purchase Agreements, y de que lo que hacen los compradores, ya sea distribuidores o clientes grandes, y entonces una hidroeléctrica no puede competir con una solar, con una eólica. No puede competir $30 el megavatio hora contra $50 el megavatio hora que necesita una hidroeléctrica grande. Y entonces, con todo lo buenas que son las hidroeléctricas y con todo lo que
and every single thing that is going to be with the various batteries of all, and of course going to be kind of difficult. For example, in this case, in the processors guys and everything will be, well, you say, well, what is going to happen here? Because, well, it's going to be those kind of things. So you need to solve all of those topics, or the concentration, the renewable energy and everything, when we have, because of the resources as well. So it's going to be with this congestion, because the renewables are going to be in 2, 3, 4 years as well, because it's going to take like 10 years, for example. So we're going to be able, because all of this has to be, we need to anticipate ourselves related to the topics, of course, and every single time is more difficult. It's going to be related to the communities, and every single we have a lag with the lines and everything. So it's going to be in South America, because we have some spaces as well. It's going to be, and it's going to be able to do so because of the renewables, because of the transmission. Otherwise, we're going to see Chile's case in the north of Chile, because there is a cause of Chile, because of the center, there is in the center, and the north is going to be able to do so. All those topics has to be solved. And it's going to be with the integration, and for all of those kinds of things, because of the regulations and everything, regulatories, because it's going to be able with the transmission, of course, and we know that it's going to be able to do so in Chile and in Spain, in order to check these kind of things. And it's going to be able to do so. So it's going to be kind of difficult to achieve the dream of the integration. Well, we thank all our panelists to participate. In these cases, integration now is not only just energy, but of every single operation and policy and the technology, because it was already taken apart, in order not to coordinate and to share risks as well, and to sustain some agreements in a long term, with the trust is one of the very important elements. Thank you very much. Thank you guys for being here.
Pasó mal de la garganta.
Muchas gracias. Bueno, ahí vamos, hablando. Sí. Yo creo que eso
vamos bien con el tema del CEPAC. Yo estoy, pero sí, ustedes
claro,
lo entienden bien.
Claro.
Si algo he entendido yo, tantos años estar en el tema eléctrico, es que
Sí, cómo no.
The Adam Smith Center for Economic Freedom at Florida International University. Exploring the intersection of government policy and the free market to offer a better understanding of the free enterprise system and and its impact on human prosperity around the world. Founded in 2020 by Governor Ron DeSantis and the Florida legislature to promote education and mentorship through multidisciplinary programs and fellowships, we empower students in public policy and free enterprise. We conduct cutting-edge research on political and economic systems, host global conferences and seminars, and improve public policy by providing informed analysis to decision makers. At the Adam Smith Center, we blend knowledge and action to shape a prosperous, free future and foster a vibrant community of leaders. We inform, innovate, influence, inspire. The Adam Smith Center for Economic Freedom at FIU. The Adam Smith Center for Economic Freedom. You don't just learn, you achieve. Through our interdisciplinary Bachelor of Science in Business and Government Leadership, you'll gain perspective, innovate, and connect with real-world leaders.
It starts with me.
It starts with me.
It starts with me. It starts with you.
Leadership starts here.
Les invitamos a todos a tomar asiento para dar inicio a este panel.
We'd like to invite you all to take a seat so we can start the panel. Just to remind you, if you need headsets, you can take them at the entrance.
We've been moving around a journey in different, and the second and last day of the International Economic Forum in Latin America and the Caribbean, organized by CAF and with the support of the Government of Panama. Please remember that this is going to be in Spanish, English, and Portuguese with the interpretation. If you need it, you can take one of the headsets. This panel will be in English completely. So please try to find the appropriate channel within your device. So we're gonna have the last panel of the day in the LAC Futuro room. We're going to have Jamaica open to business. We're going to have opportunities for alliances and investment. For this panel, we're going to have Oscar Avalle, representative of CAF in Salvador, who will be the moderator of this session. We are now going to have over here the Ministry of Industry Trade in Jamaica, Juliette Cox, president of the corporation in Jamaica, Kelly Down Hamilton, executive director of the Special Economic Zone of Jamaica. Welcome. We're going to pass the floor to Oscar Avalle.
This is, can you hear me? I know this is the last, or we should be discussing, one of the most important situations in which, how can we ensure that we provide the support and the help, a wonderful country that's open for business. And let me share with you an image that yesterday we shared with the Prime Minister. In the midst of the hurricane, you could see a Jamaican flag waving and showing everybody this is not going to destroy us. On the contrary, we are going to come out of this stronger. And in that sense, is that CAF is supporting with not only this event, but also with technical assistance, financial support, and of course, our emotional support, the efforts of Jamaica to be open for business. In this sense, I would like to thank the Honorable Minister Aubin Hill, Minister for Industry, Commerce, and Foreign Trade? Investment. I always get these names wrong. I'm sorry for that. To participate here, Ms. Juliette Cox from JAMPRO, who is going to be opening the session, and Ms. Kelly Hamilton, the CEO of the Special Economic Zone for Jamaica, to participate in the event. Ms. Cox, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Oscar. And let me thank you and CAF for giving this opportunity to talk about Jamaica and the fact that we are, in fact, and will always be open for business. Let me first recognize my minister, the Minister of Industry, Investment and Commerce, Senator the Honorable Aubin Hill, as well as my Minister of Finance and Public Service, the Honorable Favour Williams, who is in the audience. So, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Juliette Cox, and I'm the president of the Jamaica Promotions Corporation, which is Jamaica's investment and export promotion agency. And it's really a privilege for us to be here at this CAF event to talk about Jamaica. What we've seen as a Jamaican delegation over the past 2 days across Latin America and the Caribbean that offers an unprecedented opportunity for us to tap into a market that over the last decade, Jamaica has built a strong economic, political, and business focused foundation that makes us the right partner for businesses. Under the visionary leadership of our, who we call our business minister, Senator the Honorable Aubin Hill in Jamaica, we are committed to unlocking growth, not just for our country, but for the businesses that decide to call Jamaica home. The fact of the matter is that we have, in recent months, been reminded that the climate related vulnerabilities faced by small island states like Jamaica is real. And it has reinforced a very important truth that resilience is not only necessary, it presents an opportunity. Yesterday, our Prime Minister conveyed the intent of our recovery. Jamaica is not merely recovering, but we're building forward stronger. We're intentionally aligning reconstruction with long term development priorities, strengthening our infrastructure, accelerating our options for investments, creating opportunities. And so it gives me pleasure to talk to you about why Jamaica. The first and perhaps most compelling reason to do business in Jamaica is grounded in enviable geographical location, not just in the Caribbean, but in our entire Western Hemisphere. We like to say in Jamaica that if a ship comes out of the Panama Canal, it's bound to run right into Jamaica. That's exactly where we are. And it also means that by air, we're very connected to both North America and South America. And you couple that with the fact that we have almost 1,000 flights per week across 39 airlines and 3 airports. You can start to the connectivity that Jamaica has by air. And by sea, we have over 250 port calls on average from 25 shipping lines on a monthly basis. And I think most compelling for that proposition is the fact that we're one of the very few ports in the region that can host post-Panamax vessels. That means vessels that are carrying 14,000 TEUs can dock in Jamaica. And a lot of them do as we grow as a transshipment location. A fundamental pillar of our attractiveness is also our consistent economic growth and strong performance through disciplined reforms, prudent governance, and strong partnerships. And I'm going to leave my minister to talk a lot more about the economic fundamentals that our country has achieved over the last decade. The third pillar is our workforce. And Jamaica is 70% a services industry. And what that means is that it depends strongly on our people and the trainability of our people and the strength of our education. One of the things that the government has done is worked very closely, not just through our formal education systems, but through our vocational and national training institutes to make sure that our education and our training programs are responsive to the business needs of our investors we have today. Another tenet of our strength is our long-standing commitment to the business and investment community. From as early as the 1980s, Jamaica removed foreign exchange controls. We have no restrictions on the repatriation of profits, no restrictions on the movement of capital, and we allow investors, regardless of their nationalities, to own land and other assets in the country. It may seem very simple, but the ability to access your money when you want to is very important. And that predictability is very important. This commitment to supporting businesses is grounded in the government's unwavering principle that it is businesses that grow an economy, not the government. In fact, One of the things that we're very proud of is the fact that regardless of the administration, that's the belief system of our government. And then the last thing to mention is our incentive structure. In 2013, the government did a very careful review of our incentives in Jamaica. And out of that, we now have employment tax credits that lower our corporate income tax rate from 25% to 17.5%. We have an amazingly excellent stock market that has a junior stock exchange that provides 50% discount on taxes due to government. We provide duty-free entry for raw material, capital equipment, and tools for trade across some of our priority sectors of agriculture, manufacturing, entertainment, and health. And that is also used for our tourism industry. Most recently, our Minister of Finance has also put in place one of our newest incentives, our large scale and projects and pioneering industries act that creates an incentives for large projects to come to Jamaica, as well as projects that are using new technology or new processes, so that as we grow, we're also encouraging the transfer of knowledge and the transfer of technology to our country. But perhaps one of our most attractive incentives is our special economic zone regime. And for that reason, the CEO of the Jamaica Special Economic Zone Authority will speak about that. And so within this context, JAMPRA is proud to play a pivotal role in Jamaica's National Investment and Export Promotion Agency. We offer a full suite of investor services designed to handhold an investor throughout the investment process and essentially make starting and doing a business in Jamaica seamless and efficient. These include guidance on incentives, site selection support, coordination with government agencies, and we have a very rigorous escalation process that involves my minister if an investor hits against any roadblocks, to unhinge any challenges and remove bureaucracies that investors may encounter. And once you're established, we don't leave you. We had an investor asked us recently, at what point does JAMPRO exit the life cycle of an investor? And we say we never do. You are stuck with us once you start working with us, because then we see every new investor as a potential expansion project. And we want to make sure that whenever you come to that point of thinking about whether or not you want to expand, we're right there to help you again. But what are some of the opportunities that exist? Of course, everybody knows about Jamaica's tourism product. And that's perhaps the easiest one, because in a country of 2.8 million people, 2 years after the pandemic, when most people's tourism industry has shut down, Jamaica had almost 3 million tourists visiting our island, plus 1.3 million cruise ship passengers, generating 4.4 billion in revenues. And that continued to increase in 2024 and into 2025. Right now, I think Minister Johnson Smith, or Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, spoke about it this morning. We are at 80% recovery already post Melissa. 80% of our rooms are already reopened, with the rest scheduled to reopen the rest of this year. And we still have 8,000 new rooms that are planned or under construction for the next 3 to 5 years. So our tourism product remains a strong opportunity for any investor. Then we have our global digital services and technology industries. With over 50,000 employees, We're not a country that is focused on growing at the lower end of the industry with call centers and mere tech support, but we've been expanding into fintech and AI and knowledge process outsourcing. And we also have a strong IT outsourcing product that is looking at cybersecurity and digital management and other areas. I would not do Jamaica justice if I did not talk about agribusiness. From our coffee to our rum to our cocoa to our dried tea leaves, what we have sought to do as a country is to build on the basic resources of our agriculture and industry to create niche value added products that are not only ready to go out into the world through exports, but they're exposed to our tourists. So half of the time, you're talking about products that have already established a market at home before they're going out. And so, distinguished friends and partners, the opportunities are clear. They're inviting and they're unprecedented. Jamaica offers stability, talent, strategic location, and an investment framework that is of an undeniable brand and quality. And so we ask two things of you today. One, be ready to explore the potential of investing in Jamaica's high growth sectors. And two, connect with us at Jampro, whether by visiting our website, dobusinessjamaica.com, or with me here, and let's talk a little bit more about how you can do business in Jamaica. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to invite now Kelly Hamilton, CEO of the Special Economic Zone, to provide us an overview of how the Special Economic Zone has been structured and how this wonderful and extremely innovative exercise can open up additional investment opportunities for us.
Thank you very much, Oscar. It is indeed a pleasure to be here. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank CAF at my voice, as Shalette did, for inviting us to this event. It has been an exciting time, not only because we're seeing friends that we would have partnered with, such as yourself, Martine, and a number of other persons across the region, but we also would have met new opportunities through persons and companies that are interested in doing business in Jamaica. The special economic zone regime in Jamaica is not new, or Jamaica's had a long history with incentives going back as far back as in the 1970s. So it is not a new space for us, Oscar. But what we have done in the past 10 years is to refine the regime so that it is modern, it is agile, and it is adaptable. And if we have learned anything in the past 3 to 5 years, what we have learned is that we have to be modern, agile, and adaptable. And so Jamaica is just that. So Shalette spoke about the opportunities, and what this special economic zone regime provides is that gas, I like to call it the gas in the vehicle, that gets it going through the incentives. So in Jamaica, some of the incentives or the headline incentives that we provide through the SEZ, a lower corporate income tax rate, you're paying a headline rate of 7.75% in our regime, 0% duties on goods and services imported for use into the zone, and 0% value added tax on goods and services purchased for use in your zone. So we provide that grease to get business going. The theme of this session is Jamaica open for business, and as Shalette said, we never closed. We have been open, we remain open, and we welcome all to come into our SEZ regime and to come into Jamaica, because the truth of the matter is that the SEZ is for a specific type of business. And there was a session earlier in the day that spoke about SEZs, so I think many people are familiar with it. But just to give you a little history of the performance of our zones in Jamaica, currently we have 104 companies operating as special economic zones in Jamaica. Our regime is a little different in that the private sector is the one that determines where a zone can be located. So we don't have any one space from which you must operate. If your business requires you to be by the coastline, that is where you will be. If it requires you to be in the center of commerce, that is where your zone can be established. So we really, when we say adaptable, we really are adapting to the needs of the private sector and to what it is that drives business decisions. Now, across our country, currently, the 104 companies are operating across 235 locations. And we are seeing an uptick. Shalette spoke about industries of opportunity. Logistics is a major opportunity for us in Jamaica, warehousing, storage, transshipment. And, in listening to my colleagues from Latin America and the Caribbean, it may sound as though we're selling the same things, and it may sound as though we are competing, but the truth of the matter is that we have to compete. We have to work together, find our areas of comparative advantage, and sell those. So that is why partnership is critically important for us at the Special Economic Zone Authority. We're up here with JAMPRO. We work very closely with JAMPRO. And of course, we are led by our Minister of Business, who has energetically driven us through how many countries, Minister? We have been all over the place with our minister at the helm, leading us, carrying businesses. At this forum, we have business people here on the ground as well. And the reason is that Jamaica has taken an approach where we drive business and we take business to connect with other businesses, because that is how we're going to grow our economy. So for us at the SEZ, it is about partnership. It is about providing the incentive landscape that makes it cost effective to operate. We are open for business. You can find us at jseza.com, at VJ that's our social media handle. And we're here on the ground, and we can share more information about our regime. Now, I spoke about the leadership under our Minister of Industry, Investment and Commerce, Senator the Honorable Albin Hill. Minister Hill, boy, Minister, it energetic is not the right word to describe our minister, who if you see minister running up the stairs, that's a norm. Our minister's energy is not only infectious, but what it has done, it has led us into a new way of doing business. And the truth of the matter is that is a reflection of the entire government of Jamaica and how we operate. Digitalization, transformation, innovation are the bedrock of how we operate in Jamaica. But let me tell you a little about my minister before I open for him, before he takes the mic. Minister has over 35 years of experience operating in the private sector as an international banker. He has lived in 9 countries and done business with over 125. He has an MBA from Harvard Business School and spent 21 years as a banker in the Middle East. In 2002, he led the management team which completed the successful turnaround of one of the largest banks in the Caribbean, the National Commercial Bank. And in 19 months, Senator Hill would have moved NCB's stock price from $5.51 when he joined to $31.70. So our minister is a man of action. And after the Andrew Holness administration was returned, or in a landslide election victory, Minister Hill joined the cabinet in the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation. And then again, in the reshuffling of the cabinet, Minister Hill was returned as Minister of Industry, Investment and Commerce with responsibility for 20 agencies. Minister Hill has a firm interest in facilitating, enabling, and encouraging small and large Jamaican businesses to grow, create good Jamaica jobs, and be profitable. His focus is on growing exports exponentially and securing local and foreign direct investments into the Jamaican economy. Ladies and gentlemen, Senator the Honorable Albin Hill.
Thank you very much, Kelly Dawn and Shalette. But really, ladies and gentlemen, when Jamaica can have 2 heads of agencies is, two women of that caliber, you need to give them a round of applause. You know, it's my great pleasure to be talking about Jamaica after 10 years of leadership by our Prime Minister, who you heard 2 days ago, the Honorable Andrew Holness. Prime Minister took over the economy when it was on its knees. When economists wrote about Jamaica at the time, it's a basket case. And that was charitable in their view. In about 7 years, we changed that. And by the 8th year, we were seen as the poster child as to how not to get athletes to run and break world records. We did that. Not to have the best song, pop song of the last century, One Love. We did that. But how to take a non-oil producing economy and turn it around into a growth and positive economy that people across the world respect and couldn't believe it would happen. You couldn't believe that in 7 years or so, you could change a debt to GDP from 135 to 60%. 60% was about where it was before Melissa arrived. And although that's a hiccup, we're going to fix that too. But I remember Prime Minister Holness campaigning because we have a very robust democracy in Jamaica. It's something that I want you to recognize as a huge asset of Jamaica. One prime minister, we go to election. If Shulette is prime minister, and you'll understand why I'm choosing Shulette. Shulette is prime minister, and she calls an election, and she loses. The next morning, I take over. That's how we do it. No interregnum. No nonsense about you have to recount 15 times. No, no, no. You lost. Out of Jamaica House. The next prime minister is in, and we've done that every single time since independence. In fact, since before independence. So we have a strong political democracy that you should value when you're investing. Why? Because in our system, we make sure we made the central bank independent. And that was done so 4 years ago. And the business community they were on my back. Why are you doing this? What's going to happen to the currency? I said, you don't worry about the currency. We're giving the central bank one mandate: fix the currency. The Federal Reserve, they have two. You must make sure you look after employment, and you must make sure you control inflation. Well, we say to our central bank, you only fix inflation. We got elected to run the country, and we will fix unemployment. Unemployment is at the historical lowest it has ever been in the country, 3.3%. And we don't have oil. Not only do you bring in money and you get it in easily, but importantly, if you want to take your dividends and investment out, there are no restrictions. That's unusually strong in our region. And we're very proud of it, and it works well. And the currency has remained stable over that period of time, whether it was COVID-19 or Hurricane Beryl or Hurricane Melissa. We manage it well. So you have an economy that is used to good governance and is used to good turning out results. So when Melissa came, of course, we were hurt. People are hurting, but we're fixing it because we know how to go about fixing an economy. And yes, CAF was in there, and IMF, and the Caribbean Development Bank, and IDB, and the World Bank, and they say, here, $6.7 billion. You look after the fixing of your physical structure. We didn't have to write any paper because our performance said that we were worthy of it. And you think we weren't? 3 weeks or a couple of weeks later, the 3 rating agencies either moved our rating up positive or positive to stable. And in fact, Moody's increased our rating, improved our rating after a category 5 hurricane and without enough time to rebuild. In other words, they're saying to us, the same government is in, we've seen you change, we are willing to upgrade your bond even before you have the chance to fix that economy. Now, if that's not a credit for how you perform and why the international financial institutions would give us that money, I don't know what it is. But that's the big picture. One last big picture item. When the Prime Minister was campaigning, he said, look, I want you to be able to leave your doors and windows open. They thought he was absolutely mad because all of you, time has seen this streaming at the bottom of CNN saying that Jamaica is a place that is risky to go to. Well, listen to this. 3 years ago, we reduced the murder rate in Jamaica by 9%. The year before last, we decreased the murder rate by 19%. Last year, we decreased the murder rate to 42%. I challenge you, it's only President Bukele can stand up, can lead. They beat us. They still beat us in the way they have reduced their murder rate. But boy, we're running behind them. And you know we can run. We're going to make sure, you're going to make sure that we win or equal that race. And we have the highest regard for President Bukele. So, you know, Jamaica has that good story, but they're in good investment opportunities. Guyana has declared 11 billion barrels of oil. Suriname, 1 billion of barrels of oil coming on stream in 18 months. Guyana is on stream. We know where Venezuela is probably going to go. We know that Texas and Louisiana, they do oil services. There are people across the world who want an environment like ours. Strong legal and clear judicial and strong ways of taking your money in and out. Jamaica is a perfect place. We want to be that logistics hub that will take goods from all over the world, including Panama, break it down, send it to Guyana, whose port is not nearly as deep as ours. In fact, the United States ships come to Kingston, unload part of their cargo because they generally have a draft of 9 meters. We have 14 meters, and we're going to build 2 more ports like that. But we need investors, so the invitation is to come to a country that is well run, currency is free, strong legal system that takes you up to the Privy Council in London, and people who are able to be trained, as Shule tells you about. And when you come for your investment, you heard Shulette. She and her team, about 100 people, hold your hands and make sure you're properly invested. You must come to Jamaica. Oscar, it's over to you.
After those words, Minister Hill, what else can I say? I would say at this point, the only thing I can really say is that it's clear that that Jamaican flag that we saw in the midst of the destruction is not only waving strong, it's waving stronger than ever. And it's up to you as investors to take the advantage and the opportunity and seize the opportunity to actually really come to Jamaica, take advantage of the wonderful economic and financial environment you're facing, and show and see that Jamaica is open for business. So, Minister Hill, Colette, Kelly, thank you very much. And of course, the Honorable Minister of Finance of Jamaica, who was here with us and is basically one of the people in charge of that miracle of reducing from 130% to 60% the foreign debt, something that nobody believed that would be possible. And I can attest to that. You did a miracle. And Jamaica is open for business and will continue to be open for business. And I invite all of you to come. Thank you very much.
And before we leave, I just want to say a heartfelt thanks to CAF, President, Oscar, Stacy, the CFO. They've all been very gracious to the Prime Minister and us, and they're a great partner. And we're looking for building partners from Panama and elsewhere. And we're not going to have to search and find from the money. We can find the $20 billion that will be needed over the next 3 to 5 years to build out Jamaica back to a much more resilient place. And we're glad that people like Oscar and Stacey Kennedy and CAF will be in our corner partnering with us. Thank you so much.
Our gratitude to our speakers for such a wonderful conversation. You can share your experience in the media, and you can follow us in at Agenda CAF. This is the conclusion of the 26th edition of the Latin American and Caribbean edition, but we want to invite you to benefit from the following sessions in the other spaces of the event. So we want to invite you to the main plenary so that you can enjoy this event of the International Latin American and Caribbean Forum. Thank you for your attendance. We wish you a great afternoon to those attendees here and to the digital community connected in our YouTube channel. Please share your comments with the hashtag Foro Económico CAF.